I am the founder and executive director of a nonprofit in Nashville, Tennessee called 431 Ministries. We minister to women coming out of crisis, primarily single moms, and helping them walk from that crisis to independence. And what that looks like on a day-to-day basis means that we get to see a lot of really hard things. We get to ask a lot of really hard questions, and we get to know them, see them, and love them. But how do you go about becoming an expert in something accidentally? Because that's exactly what my story was. I never planned to be the executive director of anything. And if you'd asked anyone that had been classmates of mine here at Houghton, if you asked Dr. Gardy, who I had in many of my classes, to describe me, engaging speaker, passionate advocate, those would not have been the terms. Shy, quiet, who? Probably would be a more accurate representation of who I was while at Houghton. But the only response that I have to that is, but God. Because if there's one thing that I want you to take away from our conversation tonight, is that the reality is the only way to become the best version of yourself is to be able to say yes. And Amy alluded to this a little bit. You need to be able to say yes to the things that scare you. You need to be able to say yes to the things that God shows you. You need to say yes to the hardest things that are put before you. In 2016, I had my hopes and dreams, but even as Amy said before then, I came to Houghton as a music student and planned to go into audio engineering, and my dad made me take communications to get a real degree. And so I ended up in Dr. Gardy's class, bound and determined to finish music at the same time. And my junior year, Dr. Gardy said, you're going to go over here and you're going to go intern with the Marcom department. And I was like, why? I don't do marketing. I don't do people. So I'm not going to the Marcom department. He's like, no, I lined it up for you. You're going. Okay, sure, whatever, Dr. Gardy. And so I ended up in the Marcom department. I stayed as heads down as I could on the work, and yet I became known. And at 431, we teach that if you show up enough places anywhere, you're going to be known. You're going to be known by the lady that swipes your card in the cafeteria. For me, I'm known by my local baristas at my favorite coffee shop. They know that I always order things dairy-free, and literally yesterday, driving through the drive-thru, ordered more than one coffee, and they go, neither of those was dairy-free, are you okay? Yes, I'm sorry, that was wrong. Please put almond milk in it. I don't want to have a bad day. But to be seen and to be loved is more, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But during my time at Houghton, as I learned what it meant to do marketing, learned what it meant to communicate better, I actually found that I really enjoyed it. And so we moved to Nashville. Justin and I got married right after graduation. And for a couple of years, we prayed about what God wanted for us. We knew that we would be in ministry of some kind. We just thought it'd be part-time, Justin and Rachel, maybe working with some kids at some point, because we both had felt unknown, unseen, and unloved at some point in our lives. And my dreams at that point included a lot of silence, not a lot of people, a farm somewhere in the middle of nowhere. They certainly didn't include sharing a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with a complete stranger. And yeah, that's what God did. And in 2016, in January, a woman walked into the office that I was in, which was at Ramsey Solutions, in the marketing department of all places, and came to the front desk and said, I'm about to be homeless. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I got that email, got sent to the entire company, and I read the email and thought, surely someone will do something about this. Surely someone. And then I couldn't get her story out of my head, so I forwarded it to Justin and said, will you do something about this? Will you pray about this? And thought, he'll say no, I'll feel fine. He's the head of the house, can make the decisions for us. Bless her from afar, Lord, and would keep going on my path. And yet Justin instead responded, I think she needs to move in with us. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? That was not the answer. So we sat down with her, we interviewed her, we heard her story, heard what it was that had led her to that point, and learned more about how crisis in Middle Tennessee is handled with women, which is very poorly or not at all. And in her case, she had been targeted because she was a single mom for a series of months, being told, you deserve more, you deserve better, you deserve help, you deserve this, that, and the other thing. And finally, on a rough day, she said, well, what does that look like? I'm not interested in a relationship with you. I don't want anything to do with this. And they basically, the guy that was targeting her was like, it's fine, I don't want anything either. I just want to see you safe and known and loved. And so she ended up being moved into an apartment she couldn't afford, into a car payment she couldn't afford, and he put a contract on the table with a list of obligations that he now expected, physical obligations, her to pay her back with, and the dates that they were due. And she took that contract and she threw it at him and said, I would rather be homeless than to have my daughter live like this and to watch me. And he went, great, you're homeless. Which is exactly what he wanted. He wanted her in a vulnerable place. The problem was in Middle Tennessee, which is the same across the country, she couldn't go to a domestic violence shelter because there was no physical abuse. And she couldn't even go to a homeless shelter because she had a full-time job. She had a car, she had pieces of stability, but when she had her child, she would have had to give up her full-time job or give up her child in order to go into a homeless shelter. And she couldn't fathom doing either. She couldn't fathom giving up her child reasonably, and yet her job was the thing that held her future. That was her stability, and so she didn't want to give that up either. And that led her to a place of desperation, to be known, to be seen, and to be loved, and that led her to walk into the office and ask for help. And when Justin and I interviewed her, heard the story, and found out why she was in the situation, we realized that this is something that we could step into. This is someone not trying to game the system. This is not someone looking for a handout. She was genuinely broken and desperate for help. And so we invited her to live with us as a complete stranger into our 700 square foot home, into a 9x9 bedroom. We had a shower schedule on the bathroom door. And she and her daughter and her cat moved in and lived with us for 9 months. But in that time, my entire worldview was changed. My faith was changed because I chose to say yes along with Justin. Just the hardest thing that I could fathom. And literally, the night before she moved in, she went to go pack up her stuff, and we sat on the couch, and I cried because I said, what on earth did I get myself into? I don't want to be, I barely want to be around you sometimes. Like, how am I going to be around this stranger? And he looked at me and he said, because God said so. And we're going to say yes until he says no. She lived with us for 9 months and became like family. She's still part of our family. Her older daughter just got married this past month. I see her for lunch regularly. They come to ballet recitals. They come to family dinners. They're part of our life. And she bought her first house 7 years later. It has maintained the stability that we taught her. And more importantly, that being known and being seen and being loved taught her. Because it was about the skills that she developed, but it was more about her being willing to be seen. Because the only thing that we knew how to do, was to know and to see and to love her. We used a skill that we learned at Hote in Ezra, which is study, practice, teach. It's really important that you keep all 3 elements. If you skip from study to teach, you miss the mark. You're just doing it to do it. You're not doing it because you believe it or can do it. You're just doing it because it's there, because you believe in the idea. You miss the heart entirely. And so with her, I knew what it was like to feel unknown and spend most of my days, especially here at Houghton, trying to be unseen. But the problem was, with being unknown and unseen, is that you are unloved. Again, anyone can be known if you show up enough times. But to be seen by the baristas at my favorite coffee shop means that when I order the extra large coffee with the double shot of espresso, means that they actually know that they see that my children kept me up 3 times last night, or that I'm studying for a presentation later on. They don't see the nervousness of who I am sitting at this table waiting for this major donor to walk in. They can't help me with that being seen. They just know me. And because they don't see me, they cannot love me. They can't offer an encouraging word that says, you're going to get him. They can't say, do you need me to add a triple shot in there? They can't, because they don't see me, they can't tangibly love me. And one of my favorite things that our 4-year-old does that she has picked up naturally because of the way that I have allowed her to see me and to love me is anywhere we go, wherever we go, if she can find a flower, she picks it. Doesn't matter if it's a dandelion, a daisy, a rose. If she can find something, she will pick it to bring it to me because she knows, she has seen that it puts a smile on my face. And that seeing it, it's not the flower itself that makes me feel loved. It's the fact that she has seen me in that and is loving me in a way that is tangible to me. And honestly, to be seen and to be loved takes courage. And it takes vulnerability. And that's something that we teach, and that very first woman showed us. She taught us what it looked like to ask for help in desperation. She taught us what it looked like to lean in to something so hard. And at the end of the day, she didn't do it for herself. She did it for her daughter. And she said yes to walking into a complete stranger's home because that was the thing that she knew would keep her safe. And after those 9 months, when she got on her own and came back around, she began to do it to other ladies. She knew them, she saw them, she loved them. We teach at 431 that in order to be your best means that you need to know where you need help. It means coming to recognize that true independence means dependence on someone else for feedback, for encouragement, for the next steps. I became an accidental expert in women's ministry because I chose to surround myself with people that knew better than me in every area that I could find. I looked for mentors, I begged for meetings, I sat and asked and watched back my videos of me speaking over and over and over again so that I could learn how to be better, even though that was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, Dr. Gardy. I hated every minute of that video. To be best, to recognize that true independence is learning where dependence is required is the gospel at its heart. Because you cannot be truly independent in who God has called you to be if you don't admit at some point that you need a Savior. It takes dependence to be the best independence. So, to go back to the beginning, learning to say yes to the hard is how you get to be known, to be seen, to be loved. It means that you go to your friend and say, I am having the worst day of my life today, and this is what I need for help. It's learning yourself to say yes to yourself, to say yes to the things that others want to pour into you so that you can get better and grow. It's the method of studying yourself, studying others, first to practice and then to teach. Today, 431 Ministries has 3 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees, a host of interns, and we have served over 600 women in under 5 years. We've developed an entire method around knowing, seeing, and loving. And we have walked countless women to independence where they are coming back and doing it for others because they have seen the impact in their own life and they have seen the impact in their children's. 2 weeks ago, we got to do some interviews with a couple of our ladies during our family meal, and we asked them, what does community mean to you? And one of the ladies said, I'll never forget, she said, I used to think that it used to feel like I was drowning. I just could not keep my head above water. But because of what I have learned, the skills that I've developed, the tools that I now have, I realized that I was drowning myself. And now I am no longer drowning. I am in a boat. And community means that there are people paddling along with me. And me telling them, I can't paddle anymore and it's your turn. That's what it means to be known and to be seen and to be loved. And that's what I have. Justin is going to join me, and Amy asked for a Q&A session as well. And you can ask anything about the work that we do, about what we, just anything. We are open books. That's part of what we have learned to be known, seen, and loved.
Bring the Q's, we have A's. Yeah,
Where'd you get the number 431 from?
who's got it?
You have to
We-
stand next to behind the microphone.
I'm loud. Am I
No,
loud?
no.
Anyways, we moved onto Highway 431 in Columbia.
Not gonna be heard.
Anyways, when we moved to Tennessee, we bought our first home on Highway 431, and that was the home that first woman moved into. A year later, after she had moved out and got out on her own, a second woman moved in with us. And then we worked with a third and a fourth, and we were working with those three simultaneously when the Lord clearly called us and said, okay, this is not a ministry that I've called you to do. This isn't Justin and Rachel. This is something larger that needs to happen in this community. And through sermons, Bible studies, those moments in your life where you go 3 different places in the same week and are told the same thing, even our personal scripture study, it was made clear that we were to start an organization to grow this and go far beyond what we can do out of our home. So those ladies, 2, 3, and 4, sat down with us and we discussed what this would look like and what an organization did. And one of them said, well, why don't you call it 431 Ministries, because that's where the Lord started this work. And she said, I bet there's a Bible verse of something 431 that matches up with this. And there's not a whole lot of 431s in the Bible. That Exodus 431 is really a core to what we do.
He hasn't memorized this one yet, despite my attempts. It says, and the people believed when they heard that the Lord had seen their misery and cared about them. They bowed down and they worshipped.
That's the inspiration to 431.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rachel, you talk about sort of finding people that would be helpful to you and would teach you. How did you find those people? Like, when students leave college, how do they find those people who will continue to help them grow, to learn new things, to find new opportunities? Where did that come from for you?
Yeah, it came from a variety of places. I think the most impactful one was actually a moment that I was meeting with a local church and trying to hold it together. Part of our story that is, I didn't mention that Amy kind of referenced, is that Justin actually has an undiagnosed heart condition and there is no hope. They basically have told us over and over again, we hope that you'll make it to the next doctor's appointment. And he goes into spontaneous cardiac arrest. And I sat down with this church and I was trying to gain funding and burst into tears when she prayed over me and my family. And that was a moment that I was unseen in that meeting, and yet the Holy Spirit had seen me and he was able to love me through her. And she goes, I have this organization that works with ministry leaders and it's your turn to go and find them. And so I got paired with mentors through them. But really it comes down to just asking, being willing to say, hey, I need help. And so I had a variety of church leaders that I went to that I liked. I saw the way they parented, I saw the way their marriages were, and I would go to them and just say, hey, I want to learn from you. Will you just sit down with me over a series of time and let me ask you questions? And it always just turned into something beautiful where they poured into me for a season or more.
And for college students or people that are close to graduating or starting out in their career, I would say that some of the greatest friendships that you'll develop are the people that you ask for help.
Yes.
As you're starting with a new company, as you're getting out on your own in a new community, wherever you are, some of my best relationships are people that I have gotten to know because I knew they were an expert in something that I had a weakness in. I asked them for help. And then down the road, they come back to me and ask for help in an area that I'm an expert in, and it becomes mutual. You open that door, and those are the relationships that last a lifetime, so never be afraid to ask for help. And most people appreciate it.
You mentioned internships.
Yeah.
What are ways that interns serve 431 Ministries, and if people are interested in that, how would that look?
Yeah, so we've had a variety of internships. It's something that Rachel and I have been talking about specifically for Houghton students. We have we have had both programming internships who work directly with the clients, as well as kind of behind the scenes, more administrative, marketing, and business students who have come on for specific projects or programs. And so if you're interested in talking to us about that, I'd love to talk to you about spring or summer. Justin and I actually we have moved to a bigger house, and we finally, we actually have a place that has a full basement apartment. So if you want to come down and serve with us in Nashville, we will actually house you so that you can serve with us. And so it looks like reaching out to us, emailing me directly. You can get my information from either Rachel or Amy. Even Dr. Gardy has it. And so, and just let me know that you're a Houghton student and interested in learning more, and I'd love to talk to you. And we'll be here through Sunday morning. So if you are seriously interested, we will sit down and interview you while you're here.
In what ways have the last few interns served, just so?
Marketing. Yeah, programming, marketing, business, like it just depends on what it is. Like we have the local college, MTSU, doing a sales project for us right now where they're putting together a sales plan and competing to see who can do the best sales plan for us. So we just have a lot of different options to join the work that we're doing if this touches your heart and you want to serve these ladies.
So you mentioned you've served 600 women. I assume they didn't all live in your house with you. What are some other ways that you minister to women and come alongside of them in their time of need?
Yeah, so our method these days, we are in a flower shape of our organization. So every woman that we interact with is invited to join what we call our aptly named Known, Seen, Loved community. And what that looks like is learning-based opportunities. We do finance classes, we have Bible studies, we have family meals, and it gives them a chance to find community with someone so that they know who to ask for help, practical advisors. And we have everyone, like we have a host of local businesses that we partner with that come in and speak on anything from insurance to cart maintenance to handyman skills, anything that a mom or a woman starting over would need to do. And so that's where the bulk of our service comes from. We have between 10 and 20 ladies go through our intensive side-by-side program, which is a 24-month partnership, essentially, with a care team, with a personal mentor, a financial mentor, a licensed professional counselor, a staff member, and we walk them through what we call the Restore Me assessment. And that actually, as of today, will be live, and we'll be copywriting that and giving it to the community because we want people to go through this and to see this is where I need help next, and this is who I need to ask for it. And so that is where my heart is that population to pour in individually. But my assistant director's heart is for the community, and she is a needed piece of 431 to grow it beyond anything that I could have imagined.
So, being on the inside track, I know where the Lord has shown up several times for you all. Explain some of the things where, like the building that you had out back, and how things sometimes have morphed where God has just dropped, neat things into your lives.
I mean, it really just comes from being, actually, I'm not even going to say that because my staff would be like, that's not true at all. In 431's history, actually, much of what we have done has come with me saying, no thanks, I'm not ready for that. And God being like, that's funny, you're going to do this anyways. The building is part of that, but actually one of my favorites is our Hope and Healing, our Hope community, which is for widows and divorcees, women who have lost a spouse to death or divorce and are grieving that. And you would think that in the Christian community, where we are literally called to minister to widows and orphans, that there wouldn't be a need in that arena, and yet there is. And so we have developed a 4-day retreat for them, as well as host an annual grief conference for women to do that. But it started with a connection of a connection who approached me one day and was like, hey, you work with women in crisis. I've got this widow that just doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to grieve, doesn't know where to go from here, and has no life skills. Her husband handled all the finances, her husband hung the pictures, like she doesn't know anything. Where does she go for help? And I was like, well, she can join the side-by-side program. And he was like, I don't think that's for her. Like, I think that she's further than that, but that's not what she's looking for. Have you ever thought about doing a retreat? And I was like, no. Nope, haven't. Thanks for asking. And just kind of moved on. And wouldn't you know, he came back 2 or 3 times. And finally, I was like, okay, God, if you actually want us to do this, because this is more than I can handle, I don't know anything about grief at all. That's funny because of what we then discovered about Justin, which is a whole other thing. But I said, okay, God, if you bring someone to run the retreat for me, then I'll do it. And I asked 2 specific ladies, again, asking for help. It's critical to your success. I asked 2 specific ladies separately and asked them, hey, I know you went through a pretty actually political divorce in the public eye, and you went through widowhood. Have either of you considered ever doing a retreat? And what I didn't know was that not only did the 2 ladies actually know each other, but they had talked several years before and said, if we ever get an opportunity to do a retreat for women who need this, we'll do it. And that guy came back and was like, hey, you know that retreat idea? I found you a house to host it in so you can do it for free. And I was like, okay, I guess we're doing a retreat. And wouldn't you know, we set everything up. We went ahead and started planning, sending out invites, and we went to speak at this teeny tiny little church in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, almost an hour from where our hub of our ministry is. And shared the story, shared what we were doing, and on the way out the door, the pastor asked us to just kind of stay in case anyone wanted to talk with us. And this woman comes up and she's like, hey, my name is, I didn't really hear it. Can I talk to you? I was like, yeah. And she kind of stepped to the side. And we never know, like, when a woman comes up to talk to us, do they need our services? Are they a donor? Are they wanting their daughter to get out of jail? Like, where is this going? And so she just kind of stepped to the side and waited. And she comes up and she goes, I'm Katarina. I'm who's hosting the retreat. This is my first Sunday back in church since my husband died. And she was at this church in the middle of nowhere. We had no prior connections. And God had booked us at that church that we've never been back to for her. And that has showed up over and over and over again, where God proves, and I mean a whole other little sermon that I give frequently, is that from Genesis to Revelations, God is a lover of women in crisis. He uses women, and women who are overlooked and trod on and beaten and despised, to carry forth the gospel and to carry his plans. And so we get to see that played out, where how much God shows up to tangibly, literally give gifts, literally show up and provide for women in ways that we would not have gotten to see if we didn't say yes to everything that we're doing.
Thank you both, a little something, and let's just